Welcome to the True Crimes Unfold compilation video series. Please note that events and scenarios in this video may be graphic for some viewers. Discretion is advised. Details of the videos are taken from actual case files. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you're listening from and what type of cases you'd like us to cover next, and we'll make sure to add them to our list. Don't forget to subscribe to get new stories as soon as they're released. Abound. Now settle in, get ready, and let's begin. She was the envy of millions, a dazzling social media star who seemed to have it all: luxury, beauty, and a life most people could only dream of. But behind the curated photos and sparkling captions lay secrets that would lead to her untimely and horrifying end. This is the chilling story of Yan R. Min, the influencer whose life of glitz and glamour turned into a real-life nightmare during a vacation in Thailand, leaving the world stunned by the shocking truth behind her death. With over 1 million followers on social media, Yan R. Min was a sensation. Known for her jet-setting lifestyle, designer outfits, and inspirational posts about living your best life, Yan's brand was built on aspiration. To her fans, she was the epitome of success, a beacon of what could be achieved through hard work and determination. She was radiant. One fan commented under a recent photo of Yan posing on a pristine beach. She made us believe that anything was possible. But for those who knew her personally, Yan was more than just a polished Instagram feed. Born in a modest household, she had climbed her way to fame through sheer grit and clever marketing. Her rise was not without sacrifices, but Yan always insisted that she wanted to inspire others to dream big. Her latest posts hinted at something special. She had recently traveled to Thailand for what she described as a well-deserved escape. But the picturesque sunsets and luxurious dinners hid a darker reality, a dangerous game of trust and deception that would cost Yan her life. The first sign that something was wrong came when Yan stopped posting. Her social media accounts, once updated daily with snapshots of paradise, suddenly went silent. Fans noticed immediately, flooding her comments with concern. "Where are you, Yan?" one follower asked. "You never disappear like this." Behind the scenes, Yan's family was growing increasingly worried. Calls to her phone went unanswered, and her last known location, a high-end resort in Phuket, offered no clues. Then came the ransom call. In a chilling message, an unknown man demanded a significant sum of money in exchange for Yan's safe return. He claimed she had been kidnapped and threatened dire consequences if the family didn't comply. It was like something out of a movie, a family spokesperson later said. "We were terrified." But something about the call didn't add up. The man's demands were vague, and he refused to provide proof that Yan was alive. Desperate for answers, the family contacted Thai authorities, who quickly launched an investigation. As police delved into Yan's disappearance, they uncovered a tangled web of lies that painted a far more sinister picture. At the center of it all was Ma, a man Yan had recently begun dating. To her friends and family, he seemed charming and successful, a perfect match for someone like Yan. But Ma was not who he claimed to be. Through interviews with resort staff and CCTV footage, investigators pieced together Yan's final days. She and Ma had been seen arguing near the resort's pool shortly before her disappearance. Witnesses described Ma as agitated and Yan as distressed. Then, just hours later, Ma was caught on camera, leaving the resort alone, carrying a large duffel bag. The more police dug into Ma's background, the more disturbing the revelations became. His social media presence, like Jan's, portrayed a life of luxury and success. But in reality, Ma was drowning in debt, with a history of manipulating wealthy women for financial gain. Jan, it seemed, had become his latest target. Ma had carefully cultivated his image to lure Jan into his web. From designer suits to expensive watches, everything about him screamed wealth and sophistication. He claimed to be a successful entrepreneur, but investigators soon discovered that his businesses were nothing more than elaborate scams. He was a master manipulator, one investigator said. He knew exactly how to present himself to gain trust. For Yan, who valued authenticity and worked hard to build her own success, Ma's facade must have seemed genuine. Friends later revealed that Yan had expressed doubts about him shortly before her trip to Thailand. But she brushed them aside, wanting to believe in the person she thought she knew. Yan's final social media post, shared just days before her disappearance, was a photo of her sipping champagne on a yacht, captioned, "Here's to trusting the journey." The irony of her words was not lost on her followers once the truth came to light. What should have been a celebratory moment turned into a haunting reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the surface of even the most idyllic scenarios. Yan's glamorous life, which had inspired so many, was now overshadowed by the chilling reality of her untimely death. As news of Yan's disappearance spread, her fans and followers were left reeling. Speculation ran rampant, with theories ranging from an accidental death to foul play. Social media became a frenzy of updates, tributes, and demands for answers. "She didn't deserve this," one fan tweeted. "Yan was kind, hardworking, and full of life. How could this happen to her?" While the world watched in shock, Thai authorities worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery. What they discovered would not only bring justice for Yan, but also expose the dangers of unchecked trust in an era dominated by curated personas and digital deception. As investigators dug deeper into the disappearance of Yan Min, the puzzle pieces began to fall into place, revealing a predator hiding in plain sight. The man she trusted, the man she believed loved her, was not the charming entrepreneur he pretended to be. Instead, he was a con artist with a dark and twisted agenda. The first major breakthrough came when Thai authorities reviewed surveillance footage from the luxury resort where Yan and Ma had been staying. The cameras captured what would later become key evidence in unraveling the case. Just hours after Yan was last seen alive, Ma was spotted leaving their shared suite alone, carrying a large black duffel bag. His demeanor was calm, almost unnervingly so, as if he had nothing to hide. What was in that bag? Investigators feared the worst but needed more evidence before confronting Ma. The ransom call, initially believed to be a desperate plea from kidnappers, turned out to be another piece of Ma's meticulously crafted plan. Records revealed that the call had been made from a prepaid phone purchased just days before Jan's disappearance. Authorities traced the phone's activity, discovering that Ma had used it to create the illusion of a kidnapping to extort money from Jan's family. It was a calculated move, an investigator said. He knew her family would do anything to get her back, but he underestimated their decision to involve the police. With the ransom call exposed as a hoax, Ma became the prime suspect. Police issued a warrant for his arrest, but by the time they arrived at his last known location, Ma had vanished. Investigators turned their attention to Jan's social media accounts, banking records, and communication logs. What they uncovered painted a chilling picture of Ma's manipulation. Social media stalking. Ma had followed Jan's rise to fame long before they met, studying her lifestyle, preferences, and vulnerabilities. Financial exploitation. Bank statements revealed that Jan had transferred significant sums of money to Ma in the weeks leading up to her death. She had described it to friends as a business investment, but authorities now suspected coercion. Isolation tactics. Friends reported that Jan had grown distant in the months before her trip to Thailand, a classic sign of a toxic and controlling relationship. He knew exactly how to isolate her, said one of Jan's close friends. He made her think he was her only support, her only partner in life. The investigation took a horrifying turn when police received a tip from locals near a remote area outside Phuket. A farmer reported an abandoned suitcase emitting a foul odor near his property. Authorities rushed to the scene, fearing the worst. Inside the suitcase, they found Jan's lifeless body. She had been bound and wrapped in plastic, her remains showing signs of a violent struggle. The autopsy later confirmed that she had been strangled, and defensive wounds on her hands indicated that she had fought back against her attacker. The discovery sent shockwaves through the nation, turning what was once a missing persons case into a gruesome murder investigation. It was one of the most brutal crimes we've ever encountered, a lead investigator said. With the discovery of Jan's body, the hunt for Ma intensified. Tips began pouring in from people who claimed to know him, each story adding to the chilling portrait of a man who thrived on deception. A trail of victims. Several women came forward alleging that Ma had scammed them out of money under the guise of romantic relationships. Fake identities. Authorities found evidence of multiple aliases and fake businesses linked to Ma, suggesting a long history of fraud and manipulation. A calculated persona. Former acquaintances described Ma as charming but secretive, someone who seemed too good to be true, a trait that in hindsight should have raised alarms. He was a master at creating illusions, one victim said. He made you believe he was everything you ever wanted. As the investigation unfolded, forensic evidence began to paint a clearer picture of what had happened to Jan. Trace evidence from the suitcase, including fibers and fingerprints, directly linked Ma to the crime. DNA samples recovered from Jan's body further solidified the case against him. The forensic timeline revealed a chilling sequence of events. The argument. Witnesses at the resort reported hearing raised voices coming from Jan and Ma's suite on the night she disappeared. The murder evidence suggested that Jan was strangled in the suite before her body was transported in the duffel bag. The cover-up. Ma's movements, captured on CCTV, showed him leaving the resort and disposing of the suitcase in the remote area where it was later found. This was not a crime of passion, a forensic expert concluded. It was premeditated, calculated, and executed with chilling precision. The discovery of Jan's body and the revelations about Ma's true nature sent shockwaves through social media. Fans who once idolized Jan struggled to reconcile her glamorous image with the tragic circumstances of her death. Tributes poured in, with hashtags like Justice for Jan and the Protect influencers trending worldwide. She inspired so many of us. One fan wrote, "She didn't deserve this. No one does." Meanwhile, conversations about the darker side of influencer culture began to take center stage. Experts warned about the risks of living a public life where personal details can be exploited by those with malicious intent. Influencers are more vulnerable than people realize, said one sociologist. Their curated lives make them targets for manipulation. As police closed in on Ma, the public's demand for accountability grew louder. Activists called for stronger laws to protect vulnerable individuals, particularly women in abusive or manipulative relationships. Jan's family, devastated but determined, vowed to honor her memory by fighting for justice. She was more than an influencer, her mother said through tears. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She brought light to everyone she met. And now, we must make sure her light is not extinguished. With each revelation, Ma's carefully constructed facade crumbled. The man who once seemed invincible was now exposed as a predator, a fraud, and a murderer. But as authorities closed in one, with Jan Armin's gruesome murder exposed, the hunt for her killer, Ma, became a high-stakes race against time. As authorities pieced together the extent of his deception, they uncovered a chilling network of fraud, manipulation, and violence that spanned years. Ma was no ordinary conman. He was a predator who thrived on exploiting trust and hiding in plain sight. Once Ma's role in Jan's murder was confirmed, Thai authorities wasted no time issuing a nationwide alert. His face, once a polished image of charm and wealth, was now plastered across news outlets and social media platforms. The public was warned. Ma was dangerous and possibly armed. But Ma had vanished. Investigators discovered that he had fled the resort hours after disposing of Jan's body, using a false identity to evade detection. By the time the warrant for his arrest was issued, he had already crossed the border into Malaysia. It was like chasing a ghost, one investigator admitted. He knew how to disappear, and he had the resources to stay hidden. Interpol was quickly involved, and the manhunt expanded beyond Southeast Asia. Ma's multiple aliases and history of fraudulent passports made tracking him a challenge, but authorities were determined to bring him to justice. As investigators dug deeper into Ma's life, the extent of his deceit became increasingly clear. He had built his entire persona on a foundation of lies, crafting a facade that allowed him to manipulate and exploit those around him. The fake business empire. Ma claimed to be the CEO of a luxury travel company, complete with a polished website and social media accounts showcasing high-profile clients. But the business was a sham, designed to lure investors and victims like Jan into his schemes. Romantic scams, Several women came forward, revealing that Ma had used the same tactics on them. He would shower them with attention, gain their trust, and then convince them to invest in his fake ventures. One victim lost over $100,000 to his schemes. "He made you feel like you were the only one in his world," she said. But it was all a lie. A history of violence. Ma's manipulation wasn't limited to financial fraud. Police uncovered evidence of abusive behavior in past relationships, with several former partners describing him as controlling and volatile. One woman recounted how he had threatened her when she tried to leave him, saying, "If I can't have you, no one will." The turning point in the investigation came when authorities intercepted a digital trail left by Ma. Despite his attempts to cover his tracks, a financial transaction on one of his fraudulent accounts led investigators to a safe house in Kuala Lumpur. When police raided the property, they found evidence linking Ma to Yan's murder, including a laptop containing his fake ransom scripts and photos of Yan taken without her knowledge. However, Ma had already fled, leaving behind only clues to his next destination. As the manhunt continued, the public played a crucial role in keeping the pressure on Ma. Social media became a powerful tool, with users sharing updates, tips, and sightings. The hashtag #CatchManao trended globally, uniting people in the effort to bring him to justice. "He thinks he can hide, but the world is watching," one user tweeted. "We won't stop until Yan gets the justice she deserves." The global attention put immense pressure on Ma, limiting his ability to move freely. Every step he took, someone was watching, waiting to report him. After weeks on the run, Ma's luck finally ran out. Acting on a tip from a hotel employee in Singapore, authorities launched a midnight raid on a luxury suite where Ma was hiding. The arrest was swift but dramatic, with Ma attempting to flee through a back exit before being tackled by officers. In his possession were multiple fake passports, a large sum of cash, and a duffel bag containing evidence from Yan's murder. As he was led away in handcuffs, Ma's composed facade finally cracked. Witnesses described him as disheveled and panicked, a stark contrast to the suave persona he had so carefully maintained. With Ma in custody, investigators began to dismantle his web of lies. The details that emerged were both shocking and heartbreaking. A predator's strategy. Ma had targeted Yan not just for her wealth, but for her influence. Her social media presence made her a high-profile victim, and he saw her as a means to elevate his fraudulent lifestyle. Calculated manipulation. Text messages between Ma and Yan revealed a disturbing pattern of emotional abuse. He alternated between flattery and threats, using psychological tactics to control her. The final argument. Forensic analysis of Yan's phone showed that their last interaction was an argument over money. Ma's anger escalated when Yan threatened to expose him, leading to the tragic events that unfolded. The news of Ma's arrest sent shockwaves through Thailand and beyond. Yan's followers, who had watched her life unfold online, were both relieved and heartbroken. Tributes flooded social media, with fans sharing memories of Yan's kindness, ambition, and resilience. "She was a star who shone too brightly," one follower wrote. "But her light will never be extinguished." Yan's family, while grateful for Ma's capture, expressed the deep pain of knowing her life had been taken so brutally. "We will never get her back," her mother said in a tearful statement. "But we can make sure no one else falls victim to monsters like him." Ma's arrest reignited discussions about the dangers of social media, the vulnerabilities of influencers, and the societal factors that enable predators like him to operate. Experts highlighted the need for greater awareness and education about online safety, particularly for those in the public eye. Influencers often live under the illusion of control, one sociologist explained, but their visibility makes them targets for people who see them as objects, not individuals. As Ma awaited trial, the fight for justice was far from over. Prosecutors worked tirelessly to build a case that would ensure he could never harm another person. Meanwhile, Yan's family vowed to use her story as a force for change, advocating for stronger protections for women and stricter penalties for abusers. "This isn't just about Yan," her father said. "It's about making sure her death wasn't in vain." While Ma's arrest marked a turning point, the story of Yan Min remains a stark reminder of the dangers lurking behind carefully curated facades. Her life, though tragically short, has become a symbol of resilience and the enduring fight for justice. With Ma in custody, the focus shifted to the courtroom, where a trial would reveal the shocking extent of his crimes and the chilling details of Yan Min's final moments. The case became a global spectacle, drawing attention from both true crime enthusiasts and Yan's devoted followers, all united by a single demand: justice for Yan. The trial began amid intense public scrutiny. Reporters from around the world gathered outside the courthouse in Bangkok, capturing every moment of the high-profile case. Yan's parents, stoic yet visibly heartbroken, were flanked by supporters wearing T-shirts bearing her image and the words, "Justice for Yan." Inside the courtroom, Ma sat emotionless, his once polished appearance replaced by the weary look of a man whose lies had finally caught up with him. His demeanor, cold and detached, only added to the horror of his crimes as the prosecution laid out the chilling evidence. Prosecutors meticulously constructed a timeline of events, painting a damning picture of Ma's premeditation and cruelty. Key evidence included CCTV footage. The video showed Ma leaving the resort with a large duffel bag, later identified as the means by which he transported Yan's body. His calm demeanor in the footage underscored the calculated nature of his actions. Forensic evidence. DNA samples recovered from the suitcase and Yan's body conclusively linked Ma to the crime. Fibers from the duffel bag matched those found on Yan, and her autopsy revealed clear signs of strangulation. Digital footprint. Investigators presented text messages between Ma and Yan, in which he pressured her to transfer money, using threats and emotional manipulation. The prosecution argued that her refusal to comply had led to the fatal confrontation. These weren't the actions of a man who lost control, the prosecutor stated in his opening arguments. These were the calculated moves of a predator who saw his victim as a means to an end. One of the most heart-wrenching moments of the trial came when Yan's close friend, Mei Lin, took the stand. She recounted Yan's initial excitement about her relationship with Ma, followed by growing doubts as his behavior became more controlling. "Yan told me she was scared of him," Mei Lin said, her voice breaking. "She said he had a temper, but she didn't want to believe he could hurt her. She always tried to see the good in people, Mei Lin's testimony humanized Yan, reminding the court and the world that she was more than just a victim. She was a vibrant, ambitious young woman whose life had been cruelly cut short. Ma's defense team attempted to portray him as a man overwhelmed by financial pressures and emotional instability. They argued that Yan's death was the result of a heated argument that spiraled out of control, not a premeditated act of violence. He deeply regrets what happened. Ma's lawyer claimed this was a tragedy, but it was not murder. The defense also tried to shift blame onto Yan, implying that her refusal to help Ma financially had provoked the fatal confrontation. This tactic was met with outrage both inside and outside the courtroom, with many calling it a cruel attempt to deflect responsibility. In a dramatic turn of events, Ma took the stand. His testimony was cold and calculating, offering little insight into the man behind the mask. He admitted to disposing of Yan's body, but denied killing her intentionally. "She hit me first," Ma claimed, his voice devoid of emotion. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was an accident." His words were met with audible gasps from the courtroom. For Yan's parents, the lack of remorse was unbearable. Her mother broke down in tears, clutching a photo of her daughter as Ma continued to deflect blame. Despite Ma's attempts to minimize his role, the physical evidence left no doubt about his guilt. Forensic experts testified that Yan's injuries were consistent with deliberate strangulation, not an accidental death as Ma claimed. The prosecution also highlighted the meticulous planning that followed the crime, from the disposal of her body to the fake ransom call. "His actions after her death tell you everything you need to know," the prosecutor argued. "This was no accident. This was murder." As the trial progressed, public sentiment against Ma grew stronger. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered daily, holding signs demanding the maximum penalty. Social media buzzed with updates, with hashtags like "Yan deserves justice" and "So life Fomafa" trending worldwide. "Ma doesn't deserve to walk free," one post read. "He took her life without a second thought. Now it's time for him to pay." Yan's story also reignited conversations about the darker side of influencer culture, the dangers of manipulation, and the vulnerabilities of those living in the public eye. Advocacy groups used her case to push for greater awareness and legal protections, ensuring that her death would not be in vain. The jury returned a unanimous verdict. Ma was found guilty of premeditated murder, fraud, and obstruction of justice. The judge, in a scathing condemnation of his actions, sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. "This court finds your actions to be cold, calculated, and devoid of any humanity," the judge said. "You preyed on a trusting young woman, using her for your own gain, and ended her life in the most brutal way imaginable. For this, you will face the full weight of justice." The courtroom erupted in applause and tears as the verdict was read. For Yan's family, it was a bittersweet moment. A measure of justice, but one that could never bring their daughter back. Ma's conviction marked a turning point, not just in Yan's case, but in the broader fight against exploitation and violence. Advocacy groups celebrated the verdict as a victory for victims everywhere, a reminder that justice is possible even in the face of overwhelming darkness. "This isn't just about Yan," her father said in a press conference after the sentencing. "It's about every woman, who has ever been manipulated, controlled, or silenced. Yan's story will continue to inspire change. In the weeks following the trial, Yan's family established the Yan Ah Min Foundation, dedicated to empowering young women and promoting online safety. The foundation's programs include workshops on recognizing toxic relationships, resources for influencers, and initiatives to support victims of abuse. Yan wanted to make the world a better place, her mother said at the foundation's launch. Through this foundation, she still can. While the trial brought closure to Yan's case, her story remains a haunting reminder of the dangers lurking behind carefully curated facades. Her life, though tragically cut short, has become a symbol of resilience, justice, and the enduring fight to protect the vulnerable. With Ma sentenced to life imprisonment, the focus turned to Yan Ah Min's legacy. A life cut tragically short, but destined to inspire meaningful change. Her story, though rooted in heartbreak, has become a rallying cry for justice, awareness, and empowerment. In the aftermath of the trial, Yan's family established the Yan Ah Min Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to combating the dangers that contributed to her tragic death. Its mission: to educate, empower, and protect others from falling victim to manipulation, abuse, and violence. The Foundation's initiatives include workshops on relationship red flags, designed to help young people recognize the warning signs of toxic and controlling relationships, resources for influencers, focused on online safety, personal security, and navigating the risks of public visibility, support services for victims, offering counseling, legal aid, and financial assistance to individuals escaping abusive situations. Yan always wanted to make a difference, her mother said at the foundation's launch event. Now, through her story, she will continue to do so. Yan's case sparked a global conversation about the double-edged sword of social media. While platforms like Instagram and TikTok allowed her to build a life of influence and success, they also made her vulnerable to predators like Ma. Experts weighed in on the dangers of curated online personas, emphasizing the need for balance and caution. Social media creates an illusion of connection, one sociologist explained. But it can also expose people to exploitation, especially when trust is misplaced. The Yan Ah Min Foundation has partnered with tech companies to raise awareness about these risks, advocating for enhanced privacy features and educational campaigns. The collaboration aims to ensure that influencers and everyday users alike can navigate social media safely. Yan's death also ignited a broader movement in Thailand and beyond, shining a spotlight on the need for systemic reforms to protect vulnerable individuals. Advocacy groups seized the moment to push for changes in laws and societal norms, focusing on stronger protections for women, expanding legal definitions of abuse to include emotional manipulation and coercive control, establishing harsher penalties for predators who exploit trust for personal gain, mandatory safety training, introducing personal safety and awareness workshops in schools, colleges, and workplaces, educating individuals on identifying and responding to potentially dangerous situations. improved victim support, increasing funding for shelters, counseling services, and legal aid for survivors of abuse and violence. This isn't just about Yan, one activist said. It's about creating a world where no one has to experience what she did. The influencer community, shaken by Yan's story, has rallied to honor her legacy. Many have used their platforms to spread awareness about the risks of their profession, offering tips on staying safe while maintaining a public presence. Initiatives like Influencers for Yan have brought creators together, fostering a sense of solidarity and responsibility. Yan's life reminds us that fame doesn't make you invincible, said one popular creator. We have to look out for each other and for ourselves. The tragedy has also prompted discussions about transparency in influencer culture, encouraging creators to share the realities behind the filters and carefully curated content. For many, Yan's story serves as a reminder that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a call for vigilance. Yan's story has forced society to confront uncomfortable truths about manipulation, abuse, and the blurred lines between trust and betrayal. Among the key takeaways are the danger of isolation. Ma's control over Yan depended on isolating her from her friends and family, a common tactic in abusive relationships. Recognizing and addressing these patterns is critical to preventing similar tragedies. The illusion of perfection. Yan's glamorous social media presence hid the struggles and vulnerabilities she faced behind the scenes. Her story underscores the importance of looking beyond the surface and supporting those who may be suffering in silence. The importance of community. The outpouring of support from Yan's followers, friends, and advocacy groups highlights the power of collective action in seeking justice and driving change. For Yan's parents, the pain of losing their daughter is a wound that will never fully heal. Yet, they have found purpose in ensuring her story inspires change. Yan was our light, her father said at a recent vigil. And now we will make sure her light shines for others. The family has become vocal advocates for victims of abuse, sharing their journey and encouraging others to speak out. Their strength has inspired countless others to come forward with their own stories, breaking the silence that often surrounds abuse and manipulation. Yan's life, though tragically short, has become a symbol of hope and resilience. Her story is a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is the potential for light and change. Through her foundation, her family, and the countless lives she touched, Yan's legacy continues to grow. Yan believed in living boldly, her mother said. And even though she's gone, her boldness lives on. In the lives she's changed, in the hearts she's touched, and in the movement she's inspired. The case of Yana Min is more than just a tragic story. It's a wake-up call. It has exposed the dangers of manipulation, the vulnerabilities of public personas, and the urgent need for systemic change. But it has also shown the power of resilience, community, and the enduring fight for justice. As Yan's story continues to inspire action, her light will never fade. Her legacy reminds us that even in the face of unspeakable tragedy, there is always the potential for hope, change, and a brighter future. Yana Min's story may have ended in tragedy, but her legacy continues to shape a brighter, safer future. The shockwaves of her murder have driven societal change, strengthened communities, and illuminated the dangers of unchecked trust and online personas. As the world reflects on the lessons from her life and death, Yan's influence endures, not just as an inspiration, but as a call to action. Yan's death became a catalyst for discussions about personal safety, digital awareness, and the hidden dangers of the influencer lifestyle. Her foundation, established by her family, has spearheaded campaigns to educate the public on the warning signs of manipulation and abuse. From schools to workplaces, the Yan Ah Min Foundation has brought critical conversations to the forefront. Yan's story isn't just about what happened to her mother said at a recent event. It's about what we can do to protect others. It's about making sure no one else has to suffer the way she did. The foundation has partnered with governments, tech companies, and non-profits to implement lasting changes, including social media safety programs, teaching influencers and users how to safeguard their personal information and recognize suspicious behavior, legal reforms, advocating for stricter penalties for online predators and enhanced protections for public figures, support networks, creating spaces where victims of abuse and manipulation can seek help without fear of judgment or retaliation. One of the most profound impacts of Yan's story has been on younger generations, who see her as a cautionary tale and a symbol of resilience. In schools, workshops on online safety and emotional intelligence have become part of the curriculum, teaching students how to navigate relationships and digital spaces with caution. Yan showed us that even the strongest people can be vulnerable, said one student who attended a foundation-sponsored workshop. Her story makes me want to be more aware, not just for myself, but for my friends and family too. Social media platforms too have embraced the lessons from Yan's case. New features aimed at enhancing user safety, such as account verification tools, anonymity checks for financial transactions, and flagged messages for abusive language, are now being implemented worldwide. Yan's story has also sparked a transformation within the influencer community. Many creators, inspired by her legacy, have begun to share the realities behind their curated lives, fostering authenticity and vulnerability in a space often dominated by perfection. The hashtag #RealFoyan became a movement, encouraging influencers to post unfiltered content and discuss the challenges of their profession. Yan's death taught us that the pressure to appear perfect can be dangerous, said one prominent creator. We owe it to her and to ourselves to be real. The tragedy has also highlighted the importance of community within the influencer world. Creators now work together to promote safety, sharing resources and tips to protect themselves and their peers from exploitation. Yan's case forced a broader reckoning with societal attitudes toward manipulation, control, and the commodification of personal lives. Advocacy groups have used her story to push for cultural shifts, emphasizing the need for empathy, understanding that victims of manipulation often feel trapped and isolated, and offering support rather than judgment. The dangers of idealization, recognizing that even those who seem to have it all, like Yan, are not immune to pain and danger. The power of vigilance. encouraging communities to look out for one another, recognizing and reporting signs of abuse and exploitation. These conversations have sparked meaningful change, creating a culture where safety and awareness are prioritized. Yan's story has resonated far beyond Thailand, inspiring change on an international scale. Governments in countries around the world have adopted measures to enhance influencer safety and combat online exploitation. Advocacy groups have used her case as a rallying cry, raising awareness about the systemic issues that enable predators like Ma to operate. Yan's light reached across borders, said a representative from an international nonprofit. Her story is a reminder that the fight against manipulation and violence is a global one. For Yan's family, the pain of her loss remains a daily struggle. Yet, they have found purpose in honoring her legacy and ensuring her story inspires change. Through the foundation, they have connected with other families who have experienced similar tragedies, offering support and solidarity. "We are not alone," Yan's father said. And that's what gives us strength to know that Yan's story is helping others, even in the face of our grief. Their work has touched countless lives, turning their personal tragedy into a beacon of hope. While much progress has been made, Yan's story also serves as a reminder that the fight against exploitation and violence is far from over. Predators like Ma still exist, and the systems meant to protect victims are not yet foolproof. Advocacy groups continue to push for stronger laws, better education, and greater accountability. "We owe it to Yan to keep fighting," said a representative from the foundation. Her story has already changed the world, but there's still so much more to do. Yan's life, though tragically short, was filled with light, ambition, and love. Her impact is felt not only in the lives of those she touched directly, but also in the countless others who have been inspired by her story. Through her foundation, her family, and the global movement she inspired, Yan's legacy lives on. At a recent vigil held in her memory, attendees lit candles and shared stories of how Yan had influenced their lives. Her mother, addressing the crowd, offered a poignant reminder. Yan believed in living boldly, in chasing dreams and spreading kindness. She may be gone, but her light will never fade. Yan's story is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a call to action, a testament to the power of resilience, and a reminder of the impact one life can have. Her legacy continues to inspire change, proving that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, hope and transformation are possible. Yan's light shines on, a beacon for those who seek justice, truth, and a better, safer world. Her story isn't just about what was lost, it's about what can be built in its place. It was supposed to be a night of laughter, unity, and royal tradition. But by the time dawn broke on June 2nd, 2001, the once glorious Narayaniti Palace in Kathmandu was drenched in blood. The massacre of Nepal's beloved royal family shocked the nation to its core, leaving an entire country grappling with grief, rage, and an avalanche of unanswered questions. For centuries, the Shah dynasty had been the beating heart of Nepal. Revered as incarnations of Lord Vishnu, the monarchs were more than rulers. They were divine figures, the custodians of tradition, and symbols of national pride. King Birendra, the reigning monarch, was especially adored. Known as a kind and progressive leader, he was a unifying force in a country often divided by caste, geography, and politics. But beneath the gilded veneer of palace life, shadows loomed. Whispers of internal strife, political pressure, and family tensions had begun to seep out from the palace walls. No one, however, could have predicted the catastrophic events about to unfold. It began like any other family gathering at the Narayanhiti Palace. A royal dinner in the billiard hall, an opulent room adorned with chandeliers and regal portraits. The air was thick with formality and familial pride. King Birendra and Queen Aishwarya, their two beloved sons, Crown Prince Dipendra and Prince Nirajan, and Princess Shruti, their only daughter, were joined by other close relatives. It was a rare moment of intimacy for a family burdened by duty. But as the evening progressed, a dark storm brewed behind the eyes of Crown Prince Dipendra. By all accounts, Dipendra was a man of contradictions, a charming, intelligent heir with a penchant for luxury, but also a troubled soul battling addiction and mental anguish. The pressure to live up to his royal destiny had pushed him to the brink. Then came the explosion of violence. Without warning, Dipendra left the dinner and returned armed to the teeth with automatic weapons and ammunition. Witnesses would later describe his transformation as chilling. His expression void of emotion as he began his horrifying rampage. Bullets ripped through the once peaceful hall as Dipendra systematically turned on his family. King Birendra, the pillar of the dynasty, was shot at point-blank range as chaos erupted. Queen Aishwarya, known for her fierce will, reportedly tried to confront her son but met the same tragic fate. Relatives scrambled to escape, but the crown prince showed no mercy. The massacre lasted mere minutes, but its impact would last a lifetime. By the time the gunfire ceased, 10 members of Nepal's royal family lay dead, and Dipendra himself was gravely wounded, a self-inflicted gunshot in what seemed to be a final act of despair. News of the massacre spread like wildfire. Overnight, the streets of Kathmandu were flooded with the mourners, their cries of disbelief echoing through the city. People gathered outside the palace gates, clutching candles and photographs of the late king. Nepal, a nation where the monarchy was intertwined with religion and identity, had lost its divine protectors. It felt like the end of the world, one witness said, tears streaming down her face. We worshipped them. How could this happen? The official statement from the palace was both shocking and vague, citing a sudden tragedy without elaborating. Rumors filled the vacuum of information, with conspiracy theories taking root almost instantly. Had Dipendra truly killed his own family? Or was this an orchestrated coup disguised as a family feud? Dipendra, though comatose, was still alive when he was declared king in the immediate aftermath of the massacre, a macabre technicality of royal succession. For 3 agonizing days, the people of Nepal watched as their new king lay unconscious, tethered to life by a thread. His reign, though short-lived, became a surreal footnote in the country's history. When Dipendra succumbed to his injuries on June 4th, the monarchy was left in shambles. Prince Gyanendra, King Birendra's younger brother, and a controversial figure in his own right, ascended the throne. But for a grieving nation, his rule would forever be shadowed by suspicion. Why would Crown Prince Dipendra, the heir to a centuries-old throne, commit such a heinous act? Official reports pointed to a cocktail of alcohol, drugs, and deep resentment over his family's disapproval of his love life. Dipendra had fallen for Devyani Rana, a woman deemed unsuitable by royal standards due to her family's political affiliations. He loved her deeply, a palace insider claimed, but his parents' rejection of their relationship tore him apart. But for many, this explanation was too simple, too neat. Could unrequited love alone drive a prince to massacre his family? Or was there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Almost as soon as the bodies were counted, theories began to swirl. Was Dipendra a pawn in a larger game of power? Some speculated that Gyanendra, the new king, had orchestrated the massacre to claim the throne. Others pointed to foreign interference, suggesting that enemies of Nepal's monarchy had staged the tragedy to destabilize the country. The inconsistencies in the official narrative only fueled these suspicions. Why were there no surviving palace staff to testify? How did a single man carry out such a coordinated attack without detection? And why did the investigation seem hurried, as if designed to close the case rather than uncover the truth? For Nepal, the royal massacre marked the beginning of the end for the Shah dynasty. Once revered as gods, the royal family became a symbol of scandal and tragedy. Just 7 years later, the monarchy was abolished, replaced by a federal democratic republic. The massacre, many believe, was the final nail in the coffin of a crumbling institution. But for the people of Nepal, the questions remain. Who was Dipendra, really? A troubled prince consumed by rage? A scapegoat in a grand conspiracy? Or both? To this day, the events of June 1st, 2001 haunt Nepal. The massacre was not just the loss of a family, but the collapse of an entire way of life. It was a moment when divine rulers became mortal victims, their blood staining the walls of the palace and the pages of history. What began as a quiet family dinner in the opulent Narayaniti Palace would end in one of the most horrifying massacres the modern world has ever seen. As the clock struck 8:30 p.m. on June 1st, 2001, no one inside the palace could have foreseen the bloodbath about to unfold, an event that would leave an indelible scar on Nepal's history. The billiard hall of the Narayanhiti Palace was a picture of royal elegance that night, its velvet drapes casting a regal glow over the room. The royal family had gathered for their traditional monthly dinner, a rare occasion where titles were set aside and familial bonds took center stage. King Birendra, always the gracious host, welcomed his relatives with warm smiles, his demeanor as unassuming as ever despite the weight of his crown. Beside him was Queen Aishwarya, a commanding presence known for her sharp intellect and strong-willed personality. Their children, Crown Prince Dipendra, Prince Nirajan, and Princess Shruti, completed the picture of a tight-knit family. Guests mingled over drinks, laughter echoing through the hall. But one person in the room was hiding a tempest of emotions behind a carefully composed facade. Crown Prince Dipendra. His charming smile and polite exchanges betrayed none of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. As the evening wore on, Dipendra's mood began to shift. Witnesses would later recall subtle changes in his behavior, long silences, a tightening of his jaw, and a refusal to meet his parents' gaze. The source of his frustration was no secret within the family. His love for Devyani Rana, the woman he hoped to marry, had been met with staunch opposition from King Birendra and Queen Aishwarya. The pressure to conform to royal expectations had been mounting for years, and Dipendra's increasing dependence on alcohol and drugs had only worsened his state of mind. On this particular evening, his anger and despair reached a boiling point. He was calm, too calm, a surviving relative later recounted. It was the kind of calm that hides a storm. At approximately 9 p.m., Dipendra excused himself from the gathering, retreating to his quarters. When he returned, the atmosphere in the billiard hall shifted dramatically. He was armed with an M16 rifle, a submachine gun, and a pistol, an arsenal that turned the room into a war zone within seconds. Without warning, Dipendra opened fire. The first shots rang out, striking King Birendra. Chaos erupted as guests screamed and scrambled for cover. Queen Aishwarya, ever the protective mother, reportedly rushed toward her son, shouting his name in disbelief. She, too, was gunned down in cold blood. Prince Nirajan, just 22 years old, tried to shield his father, but was fatally shot in the process. Princess Shruti, a mother of two, was among the victims, her life cut tragically short. Other relatives, including King Birendra's brother and sister-in-law, also fell to Dipendra's merciless assault. Amid the carnage, a handful of relatives managed to escape with their lives. One such survivor was Princess Komal, Dipendra's aunt, who later recounted the horrifying scene. "It was like a nightmare," she said. "There was blood everywhere, and the sound of gunfire was deafening. It didn't feel real." Komal managed to drag herself to safety, despite being severely injured. Her testimony, along with those of other survivors, would later become crucial in piecing together the sequence of events that unfolded that fateful night. As the massacre neared its grim conclusion, Dipendra turned the gun on himself. He was found sprawled on the palace grounds, unconscious but still breathing, with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The once promising heir to the throne was now a bloodied figure of tragedy, his actions leaving behind a shattered dynasty. Dipendra's survival, though brief, added another layer of complexity to the tragedy. By virtue of royal succession, he was declared king while still in a coma, a macabre twist that further deepened the nation's sorrow and confusion. The morning after the massacre, Nepal awoke to a nightmare. The streets of Kathmandu were filled with mourners, their grief palpable as they gathered outside the palace gates. The official announcement, delivered with a cold formality, left more questions than answers. On the night of June 1st, 2001, a tragedy befell the royal family, the statement read. His Majesty King Birendra and Her Majesty Queen Aishwarya, along with other esteemed members of the family, are no longer with us. The brevity of the statement did little to quell the public's hunger for details. How could the Crown Prince, a man groomed for greatness, commit such an atrocity? And why had the palace allowed him to assume the throne, even symbolically, in the wake of his actions? As the days passed, two conflicting narratives began to emerge. The official account blamed Dipendra's substance abuse and emotional instability, painting the massacre as the tragic outburst of a man pushed to his breaking point. But for many, this explanation was far too simple. Conspiracy theories soon began to circulate, fueled by inconsistencies in the investigation and the palace's reluctance to release details. Some accused Prince Gyanendra, King Birendra's younger brother and the eventual successor, of orchestrating the massacre to seize power. Others suggested foreign involvement, pointing to Nepal's precarious geopolitical position as a possible motive, while the public speculated on the causes of the massacre. The psychological toll on Nepal's citizens became increasingly evident. For a nation that had revered its monarchs as divine, the idea that the crown prince could slaughter his own family was almost too much to bear. Religious leaders struggled to reconcile the massacre with the monarchy's spiritual significance. If the king is an incarnation of Vishnu, one priest lamented, then what does this tragedy say about our faith? As details of the massacre trickled out, scrutiny fell on the palace staff and security personnel. How had Dipendra been able to smuggle multiple firearms into a high-security location? Why hadn't anyone intervened sooner? These questions, coupled with the palace's tight-lipped approach, only deepened the public's distrust. Many began to suspect that key details were being deliberately concealed, further fueling conspiracy theories. By the time Dipendra succumbed to his injuries on June 4th, the Shah dynasty was irrevocably shattered. Prince Gyanendra's ascension to the throne was met with mixed reactions, his rule overshadowed by suspicions of foul play. For the people of Nepal, the monarchy, once a source of unity and pride, had become a symbol of betrayal and loss. Even decades later, the events of June 1st, 2001 remain shrouded in mystery. Was Dipendra solely responsible for the massacre, or was he a scapegoat in a larger conspiracy? What role, if any, did internal palace politics play in the tragedy? And could the massacre have been prevented? When the gunfire ceased at Narayaniti Palace, the physical carnage was clear. But the emotional and political fallout was only beginning. Nepal, a nation rooted in monarchy and tradition, was thrust into a state of grief, disbelief, and chaos. What followed was a cascade of reactions, from public mourning to the spread of sinister conspiracy theories that deepened the tragedy. The morning of June 2nd, 2001 brought an eerie silence to Nepal. News of the massacre had spread like wildfire, and the streets of Kathmandu were filled with grieving citizens. Thousands gathered outside Narayaniti Palace, lighting candles and offering prayers. Their faces bore a collective expression of shock and devastation. The Shah dynasty wasn't just a ruling family. It was a symbol of unity, divinity, and national identity. People cried openly in the streets. One witness recalled, "It felt as though we had lost not just a king, but our father, our protector." The state funeral, held on the day of the massacre, was a somber affair. King Birendra's body, draped in ceremonial regalia, was carried through the capital in a slow procession. The streets were lined with mourners, many of whom chanted prayers and threw flower petals as the funeral cortege passed. The sheer scale of the turnout underscored the deep bond between the monarchy and its people. Crown Prince Dipendra's brief reign as king added an unsettling twist to an already incomprehensible tragedy. Despite being comatose from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, Dipendra was declared king by virtue of succession laws. For 3 days, Nepal had a ruler who could neither speak nor govern, a grim symbol of the chaos that had engulfed the country. When Dipendra succumbed to his injuries on June 4th, his death brought both an end to his reign and a host of unanswered questions. How had a beloved heir to the throne turned into a mass murderer? And why had the palace allowed him to ascend the throne, even symbolically, after the massacre? With Dipendra gone, the throne passed to Prince Gyanendra, King Birendra's younger brother. Gyanendra's ascension was fraught with controversy, as many Nepalese viewed him with suspicion. Unlike his brother, who had been celebrated for his progressive and benevolent leadership, Gyanendra had a reputation for ambition and secrecy. The new king's first public address did little to quell the unease. His statement, delivered in a monotone voice, focused on stability and unity but offered no new insights into the massacre. For many, his rise to power felt less like a natural transition and more like a calculated move. Gyanendra didn't mourn, one political analyst observed. He seized. The palace's version of events was straightforward. Dipendra, fueled by alcohol, drugs, and rage over his parents' refusal to approve his marriage to Devyani Rana, had murdered his family in a moment of madness. The explanation, while plausible, left much to be desired. Key questions went unanswered. How had Dipendra obtained the firearms used in the massacre? Why had no palace security intervened during the shooting? And why were the survivors and staff members prohibited from speaking publicly? The lack of transparency fueled a growing distrust among the Nepalese people. What had once been whispered in private now became the foundation for widespread conspiracy theories. Theories about the massacre's true origins began circulating almost immediately. At their core was a simple premise. Dipendra could not have acted alone. The sheer scale of the attack, combined with the meticulous planning required to smuggle weapons into the palace, suggested that others might have been involved. Some of the most prominent theories included Gyanendra's role. Many speculated that Gyanendra had orchestrated the massacre to claim the throne. His swift rise to power, coupled with his cold demeanor, made him a prime suspect in the court of public opinion. Foreign interference. Given Nepal's precarious geopolitical position, some theorized that foreign powers, seeking to destabilize the monarchy, had orchestrated the massacre as part of a broader agenda, a wider palace coup. Others believed that factions within the royal family or palace staff had conspired to eliminate King Birendra, using Dipendra as a scapegoat to conceal their motives. Each theory found its audience, and the lack of a thorough investigation only added to their credibility. The official inquiry into the massacre was brief, hurried, and shrouded in secrecy. A commission of high-ranking officials was assembled to investigate the events, but their findings raised more questions than answers. The report concluded that Dipendra had acted alone, citing his intoxication and emotional instability as the primary motivators. Critics argued that the investigation was a farce, designed to protect the monarchy's reputation rather than uncover the truth. Evidence was mishandled. Key witnesses were not interviewed, and the final report was released without addressing critical inconsistencies. It felt like they wanted to close the case, not solve it. said a journalist who covered the inquiry. As the details of the investigation, or lack thereof, came to light, public anger boiled over. Protests erupted across Kathmandu, with citizens demanding a more transparent investigation. Chants of, "We want the truth," echoed through the streets as demonstrators marched toward the palace gates. The monarchy, once seen as divine, was now viewed with skepticism and contempt. For many, the massacre was not just a personal tragedy, but a symbol of a broken system that prioritized power over accountability. The conspiracy theories and unanswered questions surrounding the royal massacre deepened divisions within Nepalese society. Some remained loyal to the Shah dynasty, clinging to the belief that the monarchy could still serve as a unifying force. Others called for its abolition, arguing that the institution had lost its legitimacy. These divisions would only grow in the years following the massacre, setting the stage for political upheaval and the eventual abolition of the monarchy in 2008. 2 decades after the massacre, the events of June 1, 2001, remain a source of pain and mystery for Nepal. The official narrative, while widely accepted, has done little to dispel the cloud of suspicion that hangs over the tragedy. For many, the massacre is less a story of a prince's descent into madness and more a cautionary tale about power, secrecy, and the fragility of trust. The massacre of Nepal's royal family left behind a nation grappling with grief, unanswered questions, and an unraveling monarchy. In the months and years that followed, the truth became harder to discern as the official narrative clashed with conspiracy theories, each more sinister than the last. This deepened the cracks in a dynasty already teetering on the edge. Even as the official investigation concluded that Crown Prince Dipendra had acted alone, the people of Nepal were not convinced. The sheer brutality of the attack and the lack of transparency from the palace left a void that conspiracy theories rushed to fill. Each theory painted a different picture of what might have happened that fateful night. Gyanendra's alleged involvement. King Gyanendra, who took the throne after Dipendra's death, was the subject of intense scrutiny. His rapid ascension, combined with his reputation for being power-hungry, fueled suspicions that he had orchestrated the massacre to seize the crown. Critics pointed to his convenient absence from the dinner as evidence, suggesting that he had deliberately avoided the carnage. Gyanendra's dismissive approach to the public's questions only strengthened these claims. Another theory suggested that factions within the palace, unhappy with King Birendra's progressive policies, had conspired to eliminate him. These groups, according to this theory, used Dipendra's volatile state as a cover for their own ambitions. Nepal's precarious position between India and China made it a hotbed of geopolitical tension. Some speculated that external powers had a hand in the massacre, aiming to destabilize the monarchy and open the door for influence in the region. There were whispers that Dipendra, comatose and unable to defend himself, had been framed for the massacre. Survivors' accounts and inconsistencies in the timeline fed into this theory, leaving many to wonder if the truth had been buried along with the victims. The official narrative that Dipendra, enraged and intoxicated, had acted alone, left many questions unanswered. Among the most glaring were the role of palace security. How had Dependra been able to bring multiple firearms into the heavily guarded palace without raising suspicion? And why had no security personnel intervened during the massacre? Survivors' silence. The few family members who survived the massacre were conspicuously quiet in its aftermath. Their accounts, when they surfaced, were vague and often contradictory. Gyanendra's convenient absence. Gyanendra's claim that he had been away from the palace during the dinner was met with skepticism. Why was he not present at a family gathering of such importance? These inconsistencies became the backbone of the conspiracy theories, casting a long shadow over the monarchy. For centuries, Nepal's royal family had been seen as divine, believed to be incarnations of Lord Vishnu. The massacre shattered this perception, revealing the human flaws and vulnerabilities behind the crown. The revelation that the supposed divine rulers could fall victim to internal conflict and violence shook the nation's faith, not just in the monarchy, but in the cultural and religious values it represented. Religious leaders grappled with the implications of the massacre. Temples held special prayers to cleanse the monarchy of its sins, while spiritual guides urged the public to seek solace in tradition and resilience. Yet, for many Nepalese, the massacre marked the beginning of a shift away from the idealization of the monarchy. The royal massacre didn't just destabilize the palace, it sent shockwaves through Nepal's political landscape. King Birendra had been a stabilizing force, guiding the country through a delicate transition from absolute monarchy to constitutional rule. His death created a power vacuum that King Gyanendra struggled to fill. Public distrust of the monarchy grew under Gyanendra's reign, as his authoritarian tendencies became evident. His decision to dissolve parliament and assume direct control in 2005 was met with widespread protests, further eroding the monarchy's legitimacy. The massacre had not just killed a family, it had fatally wounded the institution they represented. By 2006, Nepal was in the midst of a full-blown political revolution. Pro-democracy movements gained momentum, fueled by public outrage over Gyanendra's actions and the lingering trauma of the royal massacre. The monarchy, once seen as the bedrock of Nepalese identity, was now viewed as a relic of a bygone era. In 2008, the Nepalese Constituent Assembly officially abolished the monarchy, declaring Nepal a federal democratic republic. Gyanendra, the last king of Nepal, was forced to vacate the palace and live as a private citizen. The abolition of the monarchy marked the end of a 240-year-old dynasty, a dramatic conclusion to a story that had begun with divine reverence and ended in blood and scandal. Throughout this tumultuous period, the media played a critical role in shaping public perception of the massacre and its aftermath. Investigative journalists delved into the inconsistencies in the official narrative, while international outlets highlighted the broader implications of Nepal's political transformation. Documentaries, books, and articles about the massacre proliferated, each offering new theories and insights. While these works kept the story alive, they also contributed to the growing web of speculation, making it harder to separate fact from fiction. Even decades later, the events of June 1st, 2001, remain shrouded in mystery. For many Nepalese, the unanswered questions are a source of ongoing frustration and grief. Why was the investigation so rushed? Who stood to gain from the massacre? And most importantly, will the full truth ever come to light? These questions continue to fuel debates and discussions, keeping the memory of the royal massacre alive in the public consciousness. While the massacre and the monarchy's collapse marked a dark chapter in Nepal's history, they also paved the way for a new era. The transition to democracy has been fraught with challenges, but it has also empowered the people of Nepal to take control of their future. For younger generations, the monarchy is a distant memory, a story told by their parents and grandparents. Yet, the lessons of the massacre about power, accountability, and the fragility of institutions remain relevant. The Royal Massacre of 2001 is more than just a historical event. It is a reminder of the complexities of power, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the enduring impact of unresolved truths. While the Shah dynasty has faded into history, its tragic end continues to resonate, challenging Nepal to confront its past and build a more transparent and inclusive future. The Royal Massacre of June 2001 didn't just end lives. It marked the beginning of the end for Nepal's monarchy, a 240-year-old institution that had defined the nation's identity. The fallout from that fateful night sent shockwaves through the country, accelerating its transition from a monarchy to a democratic republic. What followed was a tumultuous journey of political upheaval, societal transformation, and a redefinition of Nepal's place in the modern world. The Shah dynasty had once stood as a pillar of divine authority, its rulers believed to be incarnations of Lord Vishnu. But the massacre shattered that illusion, exposing the monarchy's vulnerability and human flaws. When King Gyanendra took the throne after the deaths of King Birendra and Crown Prince Dipendra, he inherited not just a crown, but a nation fractured by grief, suspicion, and a growing sense of disillusionment. Gyanendra's reign began under a cloud of mistrust. Unlike his brother, King Birendra, who had been seen as a progressive leader willing to embrace constitutional reforms, Gyanendra was viewed as autocratic and disconnected from the people. His reluctance to address the unanswered questions surrounding the massacre further eroded public confidence in the monarchy. As Nepal grappled with the trauma of the massacre, it also faced mounting political challenges. The Maoist insurgency, which had been gaining strength since the mid-1990s, escalated its campaign against the government, calling for the abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of a communist state. The insurgency, combined with widespread poverty and social inequality, created a volatile environment. Gyanendra's response to these challenges only deepened the crisis. In 2005, he dissolved parliament and declared a state of emergency, assuming direct control of the government. His justification was the need to restore stability and combat the Maoist threat, but his actions were widely seen as a power grab. The move sparked nationwide protests, with citizens demanding the restoration of democracy. The monarchy, once revered as a unifying force, was now viewed by many as a relic of a feudal past, out of touch with the needs and aspirations of the people. The turning point came in April 2006, when Nepal witnessed a historic pro-democracy movement known as the People's Movement, Jana Andolan II. For 19 days, millions of Nepalese from all walks of life took to the streets. demanding an end to Gyanendra's autocratic rule and the restoration of democratic governance. The protests were unprecedented in scale and intensity. In Kathmandu, demonstrators clashed with security forces, enduring tear gas and bullets in their fight for freedom. Yet, the movement remained largely peaceful, a testament to the people's unwavering commitment to change. Faced with overwhelming opposition, Gyanendra relented. On April 24, 2006, he announced the reinstatement of Parliament, marking a significant victory for the pro-democracy movement. The king's power was drastically reduced, and the monarchy's days were clearly numbered. The final blow came in 2008, when Nepal's Constituent Assembly voted overwhelmingly to abolish the monarchy and declare the country a federal democratic republic. Gyanendra, the last king of Nepal, was given 2 weeks to vacate the royal palace. On June 11, 2008, Gyanendra left Narayanhiti Palace for the last time, walking out as a private citizen. It was a moment of profound symbolism, the end of a dynasty that had ruled Nepal for over 2 centuries. For many Nepalese, the abolition of the monarchy was a cause for celebration, a long overdue step toward equality and modernity. But for others, it was a bittersweet moment, tinged with nostalgia for a bygone era. The fall of the monarchy ushered in a period of profound transformation for Nepal. The country adopted a new constitution in 2015, establishing itself as a secular, inclusive republic. The caste system, long entrenched in Nepalese society, began to lose its grip, and efforts to empower marginalized communities gained momentum. Yet, the transition was not without challenges. Political instability, corruption, and economic struggles continued to plague the nation. The scars of the Maoist insurgency, which ended in 2006 with a peace agreement, remained visible, as did the lingering trauma of the royal massacre. The legacy of the monarchy remains a contentious topic in Nepal. For some, it is remembered as a source of unity and pride, a symbol of the nation's cultural and spiritual heritage. For others, it represents oppression, inequality, and a resistance to progress. The royal massacre itself has become a focal point of this debate. Was it the tragic culmination of a dysfunctional family's internal conflicts, or a symbol of a broader societal breakdown? Did it expose the monarchy's fragility? Or was it a convenient excuse for those seeking its abolition? These questions continue to shape Nepal's collective memory, serving as both a cautionary tale and a reminder of the need for accountability and transparency. Perhaps the most significant outcome of the royal massacre and the subsequent fall of the monarchy is the empowerment of the Nepalese people. The People's Movement of 2006 demonstrated the power of collective action and the importance of civic engagement. It was a moment when ordinary citizens took control of their destiny, refusing to be silenced by fear or oppression. Today, Nepal's democracy, though imperfect, stands as a testament to the resilience and determination of its people. The country has faced immense challenges, from natural disasters to political upheaval, but it has also shown a remarkable capacity for renewal and growth. The events of June 1, 2001 remain a dark chapter in Nepal's history. For many, the massacre represents a loss of innocence, a moment when the ideals of divinity and tradition were shattered by violence and betrayal. Yet, It also serves as a reminder of the importance of confronting uncomfortable truths and learning from the past. As Nepal continues to navigate its path forward, the lessons of the royal massacre remain relevant. They underscore the dangers of unchecked power, the need for accountability, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The massacre of Nepal's royal family on June 1st, 2001, is a haunting reminder of how power, tradition, and unchecked ambition can collide with devastating consequences. Decades later, the tragedy remains a pivotal moment in Nepal's history, a dark chapter that forced the nation to confront its identity, question its institutions, and chart a new path forward. For many Nepalese, the massacre represents the end of an era. The Shah dynasty, once seen as the living embodiment of divinity and stability, crumbled under the weight of its own internal fractures. The event shattered the illusion of invincibility that had surrounded the monarchy, exposing its vulnerability and fallibility. But the massacre also served as a catalyst for change. It marked the beginning of the monarchy's decline and the rise of democratic movements that ultimately reshaped Nepal into a federal democratic republic. While the monarchy's fall was a painful process, it cleared the way for a more inclusive and participatory political system. The massacre forced Nepal to re-evaluate its cultural and societal norms, particularly those surrounding power, hierarchy, and identity. The monarchy's connection to religion had long been a cornerstone of Nepalese culture, with kings revered as incarnations of Lord Vishnu. The tragedy called this divine association into question, prompting a broader examination of the role of tradition in modern governance. Younger generations, in particular, have embraced a more progressive and pragmatic worldview. For them, the royal massacre is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of placing too much trust in unaccountable institutions. They view the event not as a loss of identity, but as an opportunity to forge a new one, rooted in equality and transparency. Despite the passage of time, the royal massacre remains shrouded in mystery. Key questions about the event linger. Why was the investigation rushed? The official inquiry into the massacre was brief and left many inconsistencies unaddressed. What role, if any, did palace staff and security play? The lack of intervention during the attack has fueled speculation about complicity or negligence. Was Dipendra truly the sole perpetrator? While the official narrative points to his emotional instability and substance abuse, conspiracy theories suggest that he may have been a scapegoat for larger forces. These unanswered questions continue to fuel debate and speculation, keeping the memory of the massacre alive in the public consciousness. The royal massacre offers several lessons that extend beyond Nepal's borders, providing valuable insights into the nature of power, trust, and societal transformation. The fragility of power. Even the most entrenched institutions can collapse under the weight of internal conflict and public distrust. The massacre underscores the importance of accountability and transparency in maintaining legitimacy. The dangers of idealization. The Shah dynasty's divine status created a facade of invincibility that masked its underlying vulnerabilities. The tragedy highlights the risks of placing individuals or institutions on pedestals. The need for resilience. Nepal's ability to recover from the massacre and transition to democracy demonstrates the resilience of its people. The tragedy, while devastating, became a turning point that paved the way for a more inclusive future. In the years since the massacre, Nepal has undergone significant transformation. The transition to a federal democratic republic has been challenging, marked by political instability, economic struggles, and social tensions. Yet, the country has also made strides in promoting equality, empowering marginalized communities, and fostering a more participatory political culture. For many Nepalese, the lessons of the royal massacre continue to inform their vision for the country's future. Civic engagement, grassroots activism, and calls for greater transparency have become hallmarks of Nepal's evolving democracy. The royal massacre remains a deeply personal and emotional topic for many Nepalese. Survivors, relatives, and citizens alike continue to grapple with its implications. For some, it is a source of grief and loss. For others, a reminder of the need for vigilance and reform. June 1st, 2001, changed everything, said one Kathmandu resident. It was the day we lost not just a royal family, but a sense of who we were. But it was also the day we started to become something new. Globally, the royal massacre serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, secrecy, and the idealization of leadership. It is a story that resonates far beyond Nepal, offering lessons for governments, institutions, and societies around the world. As Nepal continues to move forward, the memory of the massacre remains a solemn reminder of the cost of complacency and the importance of accountability. While the wounds of the royal massacre may never fully heal, Nepal's resilience offers hope for the future. The country's ability to confront its past, embrace change, and chart a new course is a testament to the strength of its people. The massacre may have marked the end of one chapter in Nepal's history, but it also heralded the beginning of another, one defined by possibility, progress, and the enduring spirit of its citizens. The Royal Massacre of 2001 is more than just a historical event. It is a story of loss, transformation, and renewal. It is a reminder of the complexities of power and the resilience of the human spirit. For Nepal, it is a chapter in an ongoing journey, one that continues to unfold as the country builds a future rooted in democracy, inclusivity, and hope. The story of the Royal Massacre is not just about what was lost. It is about what was gained and the lessons that will guide Nepal for generations to come. It was a city of contrasts, where towering skyscrapers met ancient temples, and luxury apartments served as playgrounds for the wealthy and powerful. But one morning in December 2017, this glamorous facade was shattered when the lifeless body of a young Dutch model was discovered on a balcony, 14 floors below a luxury penthouse. What should have been another glittering night among Kuala Lumpur's elite ended in mystery, heartbreak, and unanswered questions. This is the chilling story of Ivana Smith, a rising star whose dreams were cut short in the most shocking of ways. At just 18 years old, Ivana Smith had the world at her feet. Born in the Netherlands but raised in Malaysia, Ivana was more than just a model. She was a force of nature. With piercing eyes, a radiant smile, and an aura that lit up every room she entered. She was destined for greatness. The fashion world had already begun to take notice, and Ivana's star was rising fast. She had so much potential, a close friend said. She was beautiful, talented, and full of life. It's hard to believe she's gone. But Ivana's allure wasn't confined to the runway. She was also known for her ability to navigate the glamorous yet treacherous world of Kuala Lumpur's elite. A world of endless parties, flowing champagne, and whispered secrets. December 6, 2017 began like any other for Ivana. She had been invited to a party by Alexander and Luna Johnson, a wealthy and mysterious couple known for their lavish lifestyle. Alex, a wealthy cryptocurrency entrepreneur, and Luna, his glamorous American wife, were the kind of people who exuded power and influence. Their penthouse parties were legendary, a mix of opulence and exclusivity that drew the city's elite like moths to a flame. Ivana arrived at their penthouse that evening, dressed to kill. Photos from the night show her smiling, seemingly carefree, as she mingled with other guests. But behind the glitz and glamour, something darker was brewing. By the next morning, the glittering facade had given way to tragedy. At around 3 p.m. on December 7th, a maintenance worker made a grisly discovery. Ivana's lifeless body sprawled across the balcony of a sixth-floor apartment, 14 floors below the Johnsons' penthouse. The sight was horrifying. Ivana was partially clothed, her body eerily still. The police were called immediately, and news of the discovery sent shockwaves through Kuala Lumpur's high society. How could a vibrant young woman, full of promise, meet such a violent and mysterious end? It didn't make sense. A resident of the building later said, "How does someone fall from the 20th floor in the middle of the night without anyone hearing a thing?" As investigators pieced together Ivana's final hours, the details only deepened the mystery. Witnesses recalled seeing her drinking and laughing with the Johnsons late into the night. Security footage showed the three returning to the penthouse around 5 a.m., with Ivana appearing slightly unsteady on her feet. What happened between then and the discovery of her body remains shrouded in questions. The Johnsons claimed that Ivana had been alive when they went to bed, but their story raised eyebrows. How could they not have noticed her disappearance? And why had they waited hours before notifying the police? The autopsy report added another layer of complexity. Ivana's body showed signs of alcohol and drugs, but there were also bruises on her arms and head, raising the possibility of a struggle. Her family, devastated and suspicious, immediately cried foul play. "My daughter did not fall by accident," her father, Marcel Smith, said during a press conference. "She was pushed, and we will not rest until the truth comes out." Alexander and Luna Johnson, once the toast of Kuala Lumpur's elite, quickly found themselves at the center of a media storm. The couple's seemingly perfect life was picked apart by journalists who uncovered a darker side to their story. Rumors of wild parties, substance abuse, and questionable dealings swirled around them, painting a picture of privilege gone awry. The Johnsons maintained their innocence, insisting that Ivana's death was a tragic accident. But their behavior in the days following the incident only fueled suspicion. They lawyered up almost immediately, refused to cooperate with police inquiries, and left Malaysia shortly after the incident, citing concerns for their safety. "Why would innocent people run?" one critic asked. "If they have nothing to hide, they should be helping to find out what really happened." The case captivated Kuala Lumpur, dominating headlines and sparking heated debates. For many, Ivana's death was a stark reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the city's glamorous surface. The high life, with its allure of power and privilege, suddenly seemed darker, more sinister. Social media exploded with theories and speculation. Was Ivana the victim of a jealous rage, a drug-fueled accident, or something even more sinister? A cover-up orchestrated by those with money and influence? "We just want the truth," one of Ivana's friends posted on Instagram. She didn't deserve this. As the investigation dragged on, the questions surrounding Ivana's death only multiplied. The Johnsons' role remained unclear. The police were accused of mishandling evidence, and the lack of definitive answers left Ivana's family in limbo. For those who knew and loved her, the pain of her loss was compounded by the injustice of an unsolved mystery. Ivana Smith was more than just a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, and a young woman whose life was stolen in the most horrifying way. What happened during the final hours of Ivana Smith's life remains one of the most chilling mysteries in recent history. From the glittering halls of a luxury penthouse to the cold, hard concrete of a sixth-floor balcony, Ivana's last moments are a puzzle riddled with contradictions, suspicions, and unanswered questions. On the evening of December 6, 2017, Ivana arrived at the Johnsons' penthouse. It wasn't her first time at one of their infamous gatherings. She had attended their parties before, each one a spectacle of wealth and extravagance. Guests were treated to the finest champagne, dazzling views of Kuala Lumpur's skyline, and a carefully curated air of exclusivity. Ivana, young and magnetic, fit right into this world. She was often the life of the party, effortlessly commanding attention with her charm and charisma. That night she was no different. Social media posts and witness accounts described her laughing, mingling, and dancing, seemingly carefree as the hours slipped away. Alexander and Luna Johnson were the picture of power and privilege. Alexander, a cryptocurrency entrepreneur, was known for his sharp business acumen and flamboyant spending. Luna, his striking American wife, was a socialite with a penchant for luxury and a mysterious aura that kept people guessing. But beneath the glittering exterior, the Johnsons' world was far from perfect. Rumors of substance abuse, infidelity, and volatile behavior swirled around the couple. Some who attended their parties described a darker side, an undercurrent of tension and control, masked by their glossy public personas. Ivana, it seemed, had become a part of their inner circle, whether this closeness brought her. As the night wore on, the party began to wind down. Around 5 a.m., security cameras captured Ivana, returning to the Johnsons' penthouse with Alexander and Luna. The footage shows Ivana appearing unsteady, likely due to the alcohol and drugs later found in her system. Her arm was casually slung over Luna's shoulder as they walked into the building. The next few hours remained shrouded in mystery. According to the Johnsons, Ivana was alive and well when they went to bed. They claimed she stayed in their living room while they retreated to their bedroom, leaving her alone in the penthouse. But this account raises more questions than it answers. Why would they leave their young guest unattended in a high-rise apartment? And why didn't they check on her again until hours later, long after her body had been discovered? At some point between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m., Ivana fell from the 20th floor of the penthouse. The circumstances of her fall are deeply troubling. Was it an accident, a suicide, or something far more sinister? The trajectory of her fall was unusual, according to forensic experts. Ivana's body landed on a sixth-floor balcony, suggesting she may not have simply slipped. The bruises on her arms and head added to the suspicions, pointing to the possibility of a struggle before her death. Ivana was not clumsy, a close friend said. She was cautious, especially in high places. This doesn't add up. At approximately 3 p.m., a building maintenance worker found Ivana's body. The scene was harrowing. Ivana was partially clothed, her lifeless form sprawled on the balcony as though discarded. The worker immediately notified the police. But by the time they arrived, the scene had already begun to deteriorate. Questions about the handling of Ivana's body and the integrity of the crime scene have plagued the investigation. Critics argue that critical evidence may have been lost or overlooked in the crucial hours following her death. When questioned by authorities, the Johnsons appeared unnervingly composed. They stuck to their story, maintaining that they had gone to bed and were unaware of Ivana's fall until much later. Their refusal to engage further with investigators only deepened the suspicion surrounding them. Within days, the couple left Malaysia, citing concerns for their safety. To many, their departure felt like an admission of guilt. How could two people so closely tied to the tragedy walk away without fully cooperating with the investigation? They ran because they're hiding something. Ivana's father, Marcel Smith, said in a fiery press conference. If they were innocent, they would stay and help. The official autopsy report concluded that Ivana's death was the result of a fall from a great height, with alcohol and drugs in her system contributing to her demise. But her family was quick to challenge this narrative. A second independent autopsy revealed signs of possible foul play, including bruises that appeared inconsistent with a simple fall. The timeline of events also raised red flags. Why did it take so long for Ivana's body to be discovered? What was happening in the penthouse during those crucial hours? And why did the Johnsons' account of the night's events seem so carefully rehearsed? For Ivana's family, the loss was unbearable. Marcel and his wife, Alexandra, were not just mourning their daughter. They were fighting for the truth about what happened to her. From the moment they received the news, they suspected foul play, and their determination to uncover the truth became a driving force in the case. Ivana was a bright light in our lives, Marcel said. She had so much to live for. We will not let her memory be tarnished by lies. The case quickly became a media sensation, dominating headlines in Malaysia, the Netherlands, and beyond. Social media platforms buzzed with theories, outrage, and demands for justice. The public was captivated by the juxtaposition of Ivana's glamorous life and the brutal circumstances of her death. For many, the case symbolized something larger, a cautionary tale about privilege, power, and the dark side of wealth. The Johnsons, with their opulent lifestyle and evasive behavior, became emblematic of a system that seemed designed to protect the powerful at the expense of the truth. Ivana's death remains shrouded in mystery, but her family's fight for justice has kept the case alive. from press conferences to court battles, they have refused to let her story fade into obscurity. Their determination has inspired countless others, turning Ivana's tragic death into a rallying cry for accountability and transparency. What should have been a straightforward investigation into Ivana Smith's untimely death quickly spiraled into a maze of unanswered questions, conflicting accounts, and missed opportunities. The young Dutch model's fall from the 20th floor penthouse was a tragedy, but the handling of the case by Malaysian authorities turned it into a scandal that gripped the world. When police arrived at the scene, they faced a grisly and perplexing sight. Ivana's body lay partially clothed on a sixth-floor balcony, her fall from the Johnsons' penthouse above raising immediate red flags. Despite the alarming nature of her death, the investigation was plagued by missteps from the very beginning. Authorities quickly ruled the death as accidental, citing alcohol and drug intoxication as contributing factors. However, this conclusion was met with widespread skepticism, particularly from Ivana's family, who were adamant that foul play was involved. The police didn't even treat the scene as a potential crime. Ivana's father, Marshall Smith, said in a press conference, "They jumped to conclusions without asking the right questions." From the outset, there were glaring inconsistencies in the evidence that should have raised alarms. Bruises and injuries. The autopsy revealed bruises on Ivana's arms and head, injuries that were inconsistent with a simple fall. Forensic experts suggested that these marks could indicate a struggle. The state of the body. Ivana was found partially clothed, raising questions about what happened in the moments leading up to her fall. Why was she undressed, and how did she end up on the balcony? Forensic delays. Reports indicated that the crime scene was not properly secured, and crucial forensic evidence may have been compromised in the hours after her death. These discrepancies fueled suspicions that the investigation was rushed, or worse, deliberately mishandled. The initial autopsy, conducted by Malaysian authorities, concluded that Ivana's death was accidental, caused by blunt force trauma from the fall. However, her family wasn't satisfied. They commissioned a second autopsy in the Netherlands, and the findings painted a very different picture. The independent report found evidence of possible foul play. Neck bruises, indicative of strangulation or forceful restraint. Unexplained injuries, marks on her arms and legs that suggested she may have been restrained or dragged. Timing of death. Questions were raised about whether Ivana was alive when she fell or if her body was already lifeless. The conflicting autopsies became a focal point of the case, with Ivana's family demanding a more thorough investigation. "We need answers," her father said. "This was not an accident." Alexander and Luna Johnson, the last people to see Ivana alive, were central to the investigation. Their statements about the events of the night were initially vague, but as pressure mounted, more details emerged, raising even more questions. The Johnsons claimed that Ivana had been drinking heavily and using recreational drugs. They admitted to going to bed around 7 a.m., leaving Ivana in their living room. According to them, they had no idea she had fallen until hours later. But their behavior after the incident cast doubt on their account. Delay in reporting. The Johnsons reportedly did not call the police immediately after Ivana's fall raising questions about what they might have been trying to hide. Departure from Malaysia. Just days after the incident, the couple left the country, citing fears for their safety. To many, this seemed like an attempt to avoid scrutiny. Their story doesn't add up, a family friend of Ivana's said. If they had nothing to hide, why would they run? The Johnsons' wealth and social standing added another layer of complexity to the case. Critics argued that the status as wealthy expats afforded them leniency from Malaysian authorities. The investigation's perceived lack of rigor led many to believe that the couple's influence was shielding them from accountability. Money talks, one social media user commented. If this had happened to a local girl, the response would have been very different. This sentiment was echoed by Ivana's family, who accused the authorities of prioritizing the Johnsons' reputation over justice for their daughter. As the investigation unfolded, systemic issues within Malaysia's justice system came to light. The handling of Ivana's case revealed gaps in procedure and accountability that went beyond individual missteps. Inconsistent standards. The discrepancies between the initial and independent autopsy reports highlighted the lack of standardized forensic practices. Limited transparency. Police were criticized for their lack of communication with the public and Ivana's family, fueling speculation and mistrust. Judicial challenges. Efforts to reopen the case faced numerous legal hurdles, leaving the family feeling stonewalled. These failures aren't just about Ivana, a legal expert commented. They reflect broader issues within the system that need to be addressed. The unresolved nature of the case gave rise to a host of conspiracy theories. While some were far-fetched, others raised legitimate questions about what might have happened. A violent argument. Some speculated that Ivana had been involved in a physical altercation with the Johnsons, leading to her fall. A deliberate push. Others suggested that Ivana's death was the result of a deliberate act, possibly to silence her about something she had seen or experienced. A cover-up. Theories of a coordinated cover-up involving the Johnsons and local authorities gained traction, particularly given the lack of progress in the investigation. These theories exist because the truth hasn't been revealed, said a journalist covering the case. People are desperate for answers. Amid the chaos, Ivana's family remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice. They held press conferences, hired private investigators, and worked tirelessly to keep her story in the public eye. For them, the fight wasn't just about uncovering the truth. It was about honoring Ivana's memory. We won't stop until we know what really happened, Marcel Smith said. Our daughter deserves that much. Ivana's case garnered international attention, with media outlets across the globe covering the story. The combination of her tragic death, the glamorous backdrop of Kuala Lumpur's elite, and the unresolved questions made it a topic of fascination and outrage. For many, Ivana's story became emblematic of a larger issue: the vulnerability of young women in environments dominated by wealth, power, and privilege. As of today, the circumstances surrounding Ivana Smith's death remain unresolved. The case stands as a stark reminder of the challenges faced by victims and their families in seeking justice. It raises important questions about the role of privilege, the reliability of legal systems, and the need for transparency in the pursuit of truth. As the dust settled over the initial investigation into Ivana Smith's tragic death, one thing became clear. Her family would not let her case fade into obscurity. Their relentless fight for justice turned Ivana's story from a local scandal into an international rallying cry, drawing attention to the systemic failures and societal issues that allowed her death to remain shrouded in mystery. For Ivana's parents, Marcel and Alexandra Smith, the loss of their daughter was a devastating blow, but it also ignited a fierce resolve. From the moment they learned of Ivana's death, they were convinced that the official narrative didn't add up. They believed their daughter had been the victim of foul play, and they were determined to uncover the truth. "We owe it to her," Marcel said in an emotional press conference. "Ivana was full of life, and she deserves justice. We won't stop until we get it." The Smiths hired private investigators, commissioned an independent autopsy, and took their fight to the media, ensuring that Ivana's story remained in the public eye. Their efforts were not just about seeking answers. They were about protecting Ivana's legacy and exposing the flaws in the system that had failed her. Ivana's case quickly gained traction beyond Malaysia, with media outlets in the Netherlands, the United States, and other countries picking up the story. The combination of her glamorous life, mysterious death, and the involvement of a wealthy expatriate couple made it a gripping narrative that resonated worldwide. Documentaries, podcasts, and investigative reports delved into the case, piecing together the timeline of events and highlighting the inconsistencies in the investigation. The international attention not only kept the pressure on Malaysian authorities, but also brought Ivana's family much needed support from advocacy groups and the public. "She could have been anyone's daughter," one Dutch journalist said. "Her story is a tragic reminder of how easily power and privilege can obscure the truth." As the case gained momentum, social media became a powerful tool for raising awareness and demanding justice. The hashtag "A Justice for Ivana" trended across platforms, with thousands of users sharing updates, theories, and messages of support for the Smith family. "Ivana's story breaks my heart," one user wrote. "She deserved so much more than this. We have to keep fighting for her." The online movement galvanized a global audience, uniting people from different backgrounds in a shared desire for accountability. It also amplified the pressure on Malaysian authorities, who were criticized for their handling of the case and perceived deference to the Johnsons' wealth and status. Despite the mounting evidence of inconsistencies in the investigation, reopening the case proved to be a significant challenge. Malaysian authorities were hesitant to re-examine the official findings, citing a lack of new evidence. This reluctance led the Smiths to take legal action, filing appeals and petitions to demand a more thorough inquiry. The family's legal team argued that the initial investigation had been rushed and incomplete, pointing to the independent autopsy findings and the timeline discrepancies as grounds for reopening the case. They also called for the Johnsons to be formally questioned under oath, something that had yet to happen. "These delays are unacceptable," the family's lawyers said. "We are talking about a young woman's life. She deserves better than this. As the legal battles unfolded, the Johnsons faced increasing scrutiny from both the media and the public. While they continued to maintain their innocence, their actions, particularly their decision to leave Malaysia, cast a long shadow over their credibility. Journalists uncovered additional details about the couple's lifestyle, including allegations of drug use, volatile behavior, and a history of strained relationships with others in their social circle. These revelations painted a picture of a couple whose glittering facade masked a darker reality. Everything about them is suspicious, one investigator said. Their behavior after Ivana's death raises far more questions than it answers. The Smith family's fight for justice gained the backing of numerous advocacy groups and legal organizations, which helped amplify their calls for accountability. These groups highlighted the broader issues at play in Ivana's case, including the vulnerability of young women. Advocacy groups pointed to Ivana's death as a stark reminder of the risks faced by young women in environments dominated by power and privilege. Systemic inequality, the perceived leniency shown to the Johnsons, underscored the ways in which wealth and influence can undermine justice. Cross-border challenges. The international dimensions of the case complicated the pursuit of justice, with differing legal standards and jurisdictional issues creating obstacles. This case isn't just about Ivana, one advocate said. It's about fixing a system that allows tragedies like this to happen and go unanswered. Ivana's death also sparked broader conversations about the modeling industry and the pressures faced by young women entering high-profile, high-risk environments. As a rising star, Ivana had been thrust into a world of wealth, power, and temptation, one where boundaries were often blurred and dangers overlooked. Her story prompted calls for greater protections for young models, including mandatory safety training, stricter regulations on working conditions, and resources for mental health support. This industry can be incredibly exploitative, one former model said. Ivana's case is a heartbreaking example of what can happen when those in power prioritize profit over people. Ivana's case resonated on an international scale, not only because of its mystery, but also because it touched on universal themes. The fight for justice, the impact of privilege, and the vulnerability of those who dare to dream big. For her family, this global support has been a source of solace and strength. Knowing that so many people care about Ivana keeps us going, Marcel said. We won't give up, not just for her, but for everyone who has ever been failed by the system. Years after Ivana's death, her case remains unresolved. The Smiths' legal battles, media campaigns, and public advocacy have kept the spotlight on her story. But the lack of definitive answers remains a source of pain and frustration. For Ivana's family, the fight is about more than just uncovering the truth. It's about ensuring that her legacy is one of resilience, courage, and change. Ivana Smith's story has left an indelible mark on the world. Her death, while tragic, has sparked conversations, inspired movements, and shone a light on the systemic issues that allow tragedies like hers to go unanswered. As her family and supporters continue their fight, one thing is clear: Ivana's legacy will not be defined by the circumstances of her death, but by the impact of her story and the changes it inspires. The tragic death of Ivana Smith is not just a singular mystery. It is a mirror reflecting broader societal issues that transcend borders. From the vulnerabilities of young women in glamorous yet dangerous environments to the ways power and privilege can obstruct justice, Ivana's story carries lessons that demand attention and action. Ivana's death highlighted the vulnerabilities faced by young women entering the high-pressure world of modeling. While the industry promises glamour, fame, and financial success, it also exposes models to risks that are often overlooked. Power imbalances. Models, particularly those just starting their careers, often navigate spaces dominated by powerful figures who wield control over their opportunities. Lack of protections. The absence of standardized safety measures leaves many models vulnerable to exploitation, harassment, and unsafe situations. Pressure to conform. The industry's emphasis on image and reputation can discourage models from speaking out about mistreatment or dangerous circumstances. Ivana's case underscored the need for systemic reforms to protect young models. Advocacy groups have called for mandatory safety training, stricter regulations on working conditions, and the establishment of industry watchdog organizations to hold agencies and employers accountable. This isn't just about Ivana, one advocate said. It's about ensuring that no other young woman has to face the dangers she did. The Johnsons' wealth and social status became a central point of contention in the investigation into Ivana's death. Their ability to leave Malaysia and avoid thorough questioning raised questions about how privilege can undermine accountability. This dynamic is not unique to Ivana's case. Globally, instances of powerful individuals evading justice are disturbingly common, highlighting systemic inequities in legal systems. Access to resources. Wealthy individuals often have access to high-profile legal teams, private investigators, and other resources that can skew investigations in their favor. Perceived immunity. The perception that the wealthy and powerful are above the law erodes public trust in justice systems and discourages victims and families from seeking accountability. Ivana's case became a rallying point for discussions about these disparities, with her family and supporters calling for equal treatment under the law. Justice should not have a price tag, her father Marcel said. Everyone deserves the truth, no matter who they are. The handling of Ivana's case exposed significant shortcomings in the Malaysian justice system, including rushed investigations. The initial investigation into Ivana's death was criticized for its lack of thoroughness, with key evidence overlooked and conclusions drawn prematurely. Inconsistent forensic standards. The discrepancies between the Malaysian and Dutch autopsy reports highlighted the need for standardized forensic practices to ensure accuracy and accountability. Limited transparency. The lack of clear communication from authorities fueled public mistrust and allowed conspiracy theories to flourish. These issues are not confined to Malaysia. Across the world, cases involving young women, particularly those from marginalized or less powerful backgrounds, often face similar challenges. Ivana's case has become a call to action for systemic reforms that prioritize transparency, thoroughness, and accountability. Social media played a pivotal role in keeping Ivana's case in the public eye. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook became spaces for advocacy, awareness, and collective action. Raising awareness, the hashtag #Justice for Ivana allowed supporters to share updates, theories, and messages of solidarity, ensuring that her story reached a global audience. Amplifying voices, social media gave Ivana's family a platform to directly address the public, bypassing traditional media gatekeepers and maintaining control over their narrative. Fostering accountability, the public pressure generated online forced authorities to take the case more seriously and kept the Johnsons' actions under scrutiny. However, social media also came with its challenges. The spread of conspiracy theories and misinformation sometimes muddied the conversation, making it harder to separate fact from speculation. One of the most profound lessons of Ivana's case is the power of persistence. Despite the many obstacles they faced, her family refused to give up their fight for justice. Their unwavering determination has inspired countless others and highlighted the importance of resilience in the face of systemic barriers. For Marcel and Alexandra Smith, this fight is about more than just their daughter. It's about creating a world where no family has to endure the same pain and frustration they have experienced. We won't stop until the truth comes out, Marcel said. Not just for Ivana, but for everyone who has been silenced by injustice. Ivana's case has sparked important conversations about the need for systemic change in multiple areas. Modeling industry reform. Advocacy groups are pushing for greater protections for young models, including mandatory safety training, mental health resources, and stricter regulations on workplace conduct. Legal system accountability. Calls for standardized forensic practices, transparent investigations, and equal treatment under the law have gained momentum, with Ivana's case serving as a key example. Empowering victims and families. The Smiths' determination has inspired other families to speak out about their own experiences with injustice, fostering a sense of solidarity and collective action. The lessons of Ivana's case extend far beyond Malaysia and the Netherlands. Her story has resonated with people around the world, serving as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by young women, the dangers of unchecked privilege, and the need for systemic accountability. For many, Ivana's story is a call to action, a reminder that change is possible when individuals and communities come together to demand justice. While Ivana's death is a tragedy, her legacy is one of hope and resilience. Her story has inspired conversations, movements, and reforms that have the potential to create lasting change. Through the tireless efforts of her family and supporters, Ivana's memory continues to shine as a beacon of courage and determination. We will never forget her, Marcel said, and we will never stop fighting for her. Ivana Smith's story is one of heartbreak, resilience, and the enduring fight for justice. Years after her tragic death, her case remains unresolved, yet her legacy continues to inspire change. From her family's unwavering determination to the global conversations her story has sparked, Ivana's life and untimely death have left an indelible mark on the world. For Ivana's parents, Marcel and Alexandra Smith, the fight for justice is far from over. They have poured their grief into action, transforming their personal tragedy into a mission to expose the truth about their daughter's death. Despite facing immense challenges, including systemic barriers, limited cooperation from authorities, and the emotional toll of their loss, they have remained steadfast in their pursuit of answers. Every day, without the truth, is a day we fight harder, Marcel said in a recent interview. We owe it to Ivana to keep going, no matter how long it takes. Their resilience has inspired others around the world, particularly families who have experienced similar struggles. Ivana's story has become a symbol of the power of persistence and the importance of holding those in power accountable. Ivana's case has brought to light the systemic failures that can hinder the pursuit of justice, particularly in cases involving young women and powerful individuals. Advocacy groups and legal experts have used her story as a rallying point for demanding reforms, including standardized investigations, ensuring that all cases, regardless of the victim's background or the suspect's status, are investigated thoroughly and transparently. Accountability for privilege, addressing the ways in which wealth and influence can obstruct justice, from biased investigations to unequal access to resources. Support for families, providing families of victims with the resources and support they need to navigate complex legal systems and advocate for their loved ones. These changes are long overdue, one legal advocate said. Ivana's case is a stark reminder of the work we still need to do to create a fair and just system. While Ivana's story is deeply personal, it also speaks to broader societal issues that resonate across the globe. Her death has sparked conversations about the vulnerabilities of young women. Ivana's case highlights the unique risks faced by young women in high-pressure, high-stakes environments, from exploitation to systemic neglect. The dark side of glamour. The juxtaposition of Ivana's glamorous life with the tragic circumstances of her death underscores the hidden dangers that can lurk behind wealth and privilege. The need for cultural change. Ivana's story has inspired calls for greater accountability and transparency, both within the justice system and in society at large. These conversations have not only kept Ivana's memory alive, but also created opportunities for meaningful change. For younger generations, Ivana's story serves as both a cautionary tale and a source of inspiration. Her life, full of promise and potential, is a reminder of the importance of pursuing dreams while staying vigilant against the risks that can accompany them. Her family's fight for justice, meanwhile, shows the power of resilience and the impact of speaking out. Her story has touched so many lives. Marcel said, "If it can help prevent another tragedy, then her death will not have been in vain." The international support for Ivana's case has shown the power of collective action in demanding justice. Social media movements, advocacy campaigns, and public pressure have kept her story in the spotlight, ensuring that it cannot be forgotten. This isn't just about one case, an advocate said. It's about changing the way we approach justice, accountability, and the protection of vulnerable individuals. Ivana's story is the start of a larger movement. As the fight for justice continues, Ivana's family and supporters remain focused on the future. Their goals include reopening the investigation, advocating for a more thorough and transparent inquiry into Ivana's death, with international oversight to ensure impartiality, raising awareness, using Ivana's story to educate others about the systemic issues that allow tragedies like hers to go unresolved, creating change, partnering with advocacy groups and policymakers to push for reforms that prioritize accountability, transparency, and support for victims and families. We can't change what happened to Ivana, Marcel said, but we can make sure her story leads to something meaningful. Ivana Smith's life was tragically cut short, but her legacy endures. Through the tireless efforts of her family, the global attention her case has garnered, and the changes it has inspired, Ivana's memory continues to shine as a beacon of hope and resilience. Her story is a reminder of the importance of confronting uncomfortable truths, holding powerful individuals and institutions accountable, and fighting for justice in the face of adversity. It is a call to action for all of us to create a world where no family has to endure the pain of unanswered questions and unresolved tragedies. Ivana's case is far from over. As her family and supporters continue their fight, her story serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of justice and the strength of the human spirit. It is a story that has touched hearts, sparked movements, and created a lasting impact. Ivana's light may have been extinguished, but her legacy will continue to illuminate the path toward justice, accountability, and change.